when people were saying I was taking LSD for doing 127 John Street with the Neon Tunnel, one of the clients there was a very famous guy. His name was Sonny Werblin. Sonny Werblin was the owner of the New York Jets. He hired Joe Namath, who guaranteed they'd win the Super Bowl. And Sonny asked me, he said, "Howard," he said, "what is your goal for this job?" I said, "My goal for this job, Sonny," because we were doing the racetrack first, "was to put all the other racetracks in the area out of business. That everybody's going to come here because we're going to make it such a great thing. Going to the races is an event. There should be an event atmosphere. This event has to be seen from the highway. This is a sinkhole in the Meadowlands, which is a marvelous place. That we're going to grow a football stadium, basketball arena, a racetrack. This is going to be a special place. So the first thing we're building is a racetrack. Therefore, we have to put all the other racetracks out of business so we get all the customers." And we did. They didn't go out of business, but they had to redo Belmont. And that's a real historic track. It had to be redone.
Tell us about some of the special effects you did at the Meadowlands. Or not special effects, but...
There was nothing special. It was a very simple place. It was done with it was a very low budget job. It was done with neon, with par lamps, and with industrial fixtures and crazy graphics. And I did the basic, they didn't have a graphic designer to get started, so I did the the basic graphic system. And they hired Ken Love, who's a great graphic designer, who carried it out, and made it a real graphic system, not this notion of mine about how the graphics should work. But it was very, very simple. I knew exactly how to do what the critical aspect of graphics was for a big sports complex. And that was to make people who came and go comfortable and welcome. There's nothing like pulling into a huge lot and trying to find a place for your car and then get out of the game or away from the track and go and find your car. So the best parking lot system in the world is the one at Disney World. You drive up, and there are all these people who shuttle you in, and they hand you a little tag and say, "You are parked in Goofy 45," and they point to a great big Goofy up there. "You're in Minnie Mouse 27." Well, you never forget that. You look for Minnie Mouse, you got number 27. How can you go wrong? Well, we couldn't do that at the Meadowlands, but we had signs that told them where to go. We had these little horses, so you knew what kind of horse you were going to, and people loved it. It was part of the fun started the minute you got to the parking lot. That was the only way to get there, unless you were very rich and you had a chauffeur. So it's a human thing. Who are your customers? You have a wide variety of customers there. Most of them are taxi drivers, blue-collar workers, but they're out for a good time, and why not give them that? And then you have the show-offs. The guys who come dressed in suits like from Guys and Dolls, Damon Runyon characters with two beautiful women on their arm. They need a special place where they can shine in the light. So we had bright places. Then you got the superstitious guys who go to the third toilet in the second floor men's room, close the door, close their eyes, and stick a pin in the racing form. You got to have special dark places for them to go so that nobody else should see where they stick the pin. And you have to go. And I went to every track imaginable. I would, to watch this process and to learn about it. And so I could create these light and dark and different kinds of spaces for the different folks who inhabit racetracks.
Well, were you the first to use neon in an architectural mode?
No, that was done years and years ago, and at the advent of neon, they had theaters in England that were covered in neon. They had wonderful neon displays, all used in architecture. It just hadn't been used in a while, and I just reused it. It just happened to be the right light source, to do what I wanted at the time. It's one of my three simple things, along with the fourth appropriateness. I just pick a light source, I pick a distribution or whatever I need to do. But I always like to have rooms where people think they understand where the lighting is coming from, that there's some real light. And that's from the theater. It's the motivating light. When the guy walks in to the set and he turns on the light switch, this lamp goes on, but the whole stage lights up, and it's clear that it's not that. But if you didn't turn the lamp on and the lights came on, it wouldn't have the same sense of sensibility. If you want to create mystery or something else, you do something that's surreal, But you have to be able to think of what's going to cause that absolute response. You have to have this planned, this itinerary of human response. The visual clues are what set up the emotional responses or the reactions. But everybody's perception is what you're looking to modify or to engage, even though it's subliminal. And the simpler you do it, the more subliminal it remains.
In your philosophy of design, how do you view surfaces and vertical illumination as a key to lead people through spaces? Or does that have any part in your theory of lighting design?
No, there is no rule. There are no rules. There is it's a sequence of what it is you wish to see and the order in which you wish to see it and the form you wish it to have or the importance you wish it to have. So it's a series of hierarchy of what will engage your eye. So it's selective visibility. You make things more visible or less visible, and it's that compositional, it's that set of composition. When I taught, when I was doing teaching experiments years ago, I would get very famous people to talk about aspects of composition, because I used Roy Lichtenstein as one of my lecturers to talk about composition. That certainly was a very effective means of doing it, because his sense of composition as an artist, is a very, very critical one, and one that gives a different thought. It leaves this business of, we've got a nice wall here, we'll light it. We've got this good material on the floor, we'll light that. No, it's how do people see each other in this space, and what is it about them you wish to see? And how do you wish this whole place to feel? You never, 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 never light the task. You light the space. Then when the space is lighted, you see if you need anything else for the task. And then you supplement if you need to. But if you light the task, you'll usually quit. And you'll wind up with a lousy place. That doesn't mean people won't work there and it won't be acceptable, but it won't really be lighting design. It'll be prescription filling, a thought-free process right out of a handbook. It's like an engineer looking up in the wire guide what size wire he needs to run this amount of power from this length. So he uses 12 gauge. He says, maybe I'll use 10. It's big power, I got to use 500 MCMs. He knows he's got this much of a load. It's not that way with lighting. Lighting is a process of perception, and we all have a different sense memory. And so we have to think about the client and the kind of sense memory that is appropriate for him. And that's straight from the theater. That's straight from Stanislavski, a method of lighting. It's Lee Strasberg. It's Marlon Brando.
Light the space, then supplement the task.
If you don't have a well-lighted space, I got it. You've not done a lighting design.
Tell me a couple of examples that use that rule, and I could use a photograph to explain it.
Greenwich Savings Bank. We lighted the space. There was plenty of light left over for the task.
I remember there were some task lights mounted on some side tables.
for the officers only. And that was really to bring attention to them, not to give them extra light. That task light was really a focus light. It really was something that made each one of those little places special. It was part of the visual composition of the room. More than a task light, they were task lights, but they were really serving the importance of focus. Those tungsten halogen uplights that were in the rail that went above the teller's counters really lighted the room. You know, and there was some downlight component there because you had certain compositional effect of light and shadow, different sequence of of things you wanted to focus on. But first you wanted to feel you were in this special bank, where the officers were. You could see where the tellers were. You know, so you went through this 1, 2, 3. But it really was to say that, hey, here I am on Lexington Avenue. And it was there.
Yeah.
And everything comes down to that. You know.
Over the past, well, in your career, what do you think is the most successful projects? Maybe not the most notorietable or the... Which ones are you most proud of?
Well, it's, you know, other than the Statue of Liberty, one that I'm very proud of because I think it shows the designer with a sense of social responsibility is Bryant Park. Bryant Park was the cesspool of New York. It was the center for drug dealing. There were always police there. The place was a pit, and it was behind the New York Public Library, one of the great resources of the world. And the library needed new stacks. They were going to dig up the park, build stacks under the park, and then fill it in, you know, and put in some new planting and try and make it nice.
What kind of stacks are we talking about?
Dead storage stacks, book stacks.
Book stacks.
Yeah, so there were library, you know, there was just zillions of square feet of stacks under, you know, that the library needed for its massive collection. Needed a better storage and retrieval system. And they raised $60 million to do that.